There comes a moment in every life when silence becomes louder than applause. A moment when you look around and realize that much of what you believe about yourself was handed to you by someone else. They gave you a name beyond your own. They measured your worth with rules you never created. They told you what success should look like, how confidence should sound, and even what dreams were considered acceptable. Little by little, without noticing, you began carrying their opinions as if they were your own truth. But here's the question that changes everything. Who were you before the world started introducing you to yourself? The greatest prison is not built with walls. It is built with expectations, labels, comparisons, and the quiet fear of disappointing people. Many spend years decorating that prison, believing it is home, while the person they were meant to become waits patiently on the other side of the door. The day you stop asking the world for permission to exist as yourself is the day something extraordinary begins. You no longer chase acceptance because you discover something far more valuable than approval. You discover your own voice. And once that voice is heard, even by you, the noise of the crowd begins to lose its power. Real life does not begin when everyone believes in you. Real life begins when you stop needing them to. It begins when you decide that your identity is not a public vote, but a private promise. Because the most powerful person in the room is not the one who is admired by everyone. It is the one who knows exactly who they are, even when no one else understands. From the moment we enter the world, people begin placing labels on us. Some are spoken with kindness, while others are carried with judgment. We are told we are quiet, too loud, too ambitious, too emotional, too ordinary, too different, or not enough. These words often seem harmless at first, but over time they begin to shape the way we see ourselves. Without realizing it, we start looking into the mirror through the eyes of other people instead of through our own. We begin measuring our value by their opinions, adjusting our behavior to fit their expectations, and slowly trading away pieces of our authentic identity in exchange for acceptance. The danger is not simply that people misunderstand us. The greater danger is that we begin to believe their misunderstandings. A single careless opinion can become a lifelong limitation if we allow it to settle in our minds. Someone may tell a child that they are not creative, and years later that child grows into an adult who never picks up a paintbrush, never writes a story, never explores the imagination that was always waiting to be expressed. Another person may be told they are incapable of leadership, and they spend years standing in the shadows, never realizing they possess the courage to guide others. The labels spoken by the world often become invisible chains, not because they are true, but because they are repeated often enough to sound like truth. Society also has its own collection of expectations. It creates narrow definitions of beauty, intelligence, success, and happiness, then quietly encourages everyone to fit inside those definitions. If your life looks different, you are often made to feel as though something is missing. You begin comparing your journey to carefully polished images of other people's lives. Instead of asking what genuinely fulfills your spirit, you ask what will earn applause. Instead of building a life that reflects your deepest values, you build one designed to satisfy the audience watching from a distance. In that pursuit, many people become strangers to themselves. Living according to the expectations of others demands constant performance. Every conversation becomes an opportunity to impress. Every decision is filtered through the question of what people might think. Every dream is edited until it appears acceptable to everyone except the person dreaming it. This creates a quiet exhaustion because pretending requires endless energy. You must remember every mask you wear, every role you play, and every version of yourself created for different people. Yet no matter how convincing the performance becomes, there remains a quiet emptiness that cannot be filled by approval alone. The opinions of the world are constantly changing. What is admired today may be criticized tomorrow. If your identity depends on public approval, then your confidence rises and falls with every compliment and every criticism. You become like a ship without an anchor, carried wherever the strongest opinion happens to blow. True confidence cannot survive in that condition, because it was never built from within. It was borrowed from voices that never truly understood your story, your struggles, your purpose, or your potential. The most dangerous labels are often the ones we silently repeat to ourselves after hearing them from others. Eventually, the voice of criticism no longer comes from outside. It begins speaking from within, convincing you that your limits are permanent, your flaws define you, and your dreams are unrealistic. Breaking free begins by questioning every belief that was handed to you instead of discovered by you. Not every opinion deserves a home in your mind. Not every judgment deserves authority over your future. Your identity should never be written by people who have only seen a chapter of your life while remaining unaware of the strength, resilience, compassion, imagination, and possibilities that exist beyond the pages they never bother to read. Reclaiming your identity begins with a decision that no one else can make for you. It is the quiet but powerful moment when you stop introducing yourself through the opinions of others and begin discovering who you are beneath every expectation, every comparison, and every label you have carried for years. This journey is not about becoming someone new. It is about returning to the person you were before fear convinced you to hide, before rejection taught you to shrink, and before the world persuaded you that fitting in was more important than being authentic. Many people spend their lives speaking with borrowed voices. They repeat ideas they do not believe, pursue goals they did not choose, and wear personalities that feel acceptable rather than genuine. They become experts at reading the room, sensing what others want, and adjusting themselves to meet those expectations. While this may earn temporary approval, it slowly creates a distance between the life they live and the person they truly are. The greater that distance becomes, the more difficult it is to recognize their own reflection. Success achieved through pretending often feels strangely empty because it belongs to the version of you that was created for everyone else. Your voice is more than the sound you make when you speak. It is the expression of your beliefs, your values, your experiences, your imagination, and your truth. It is reflected in the choices you make when no one is watching, in the boundaries you set when others demand too much, and in the courage to disagree when silence would be easier. Finding your own voice requires listening to yourself with the same attention you have spent giving the world. Instead of asking what people expect from you, begin asking what deeply matters to you. Instead of wondering how to avoid criticism, ask what kind of life would allow you to respect yourself at the end of each day. This process is rarely comfortable because authenticity often challenges the expectations of those around you. Some people become familiar with the version of you that always says yes, always seeks approval, and always avoids conflict. When you begin speaking honestly and living according to your own values, not everyone will celebrate the change. Some may misunderstand your confidence as arrogance or your independence as distance. Others may resist because your freedom reminds them of the parts of themselves they have not yet embraced. Their discomfort does not mean you are moving in the wrong direction. It often means you are finally moving in your own direction. Reclaiming your identity also requires releasing the fear of making mistakes. Many people remain trapped because they believe every decision must be perfect before it is worthy. Yet identity is not discovered through certainty alone. It is shaped through experience, reflection, failure, growth, and the willingness to begin again. Every honest choice teaches you something about yourself. Every challenge reveals strengths that comfort could never uncover. Every moment of courage, no matter how small, becomes another step toward becoming the person you were always meant to be. When your identity is rooted in your own values instead of public approval, criticism loses much of its power. Compliments become welcome but no longer necessary. Rejection still hurts, but it no longer defines your worth. You stop measuring your life by applause and begin measuring it by integrity. The need to impress fades because you are no longer performing for an audience. You are living from a place of truth, guided by principles that remain steady even when opinions change. There is a remarkable peace in knowing that your life reflects your own convictions rather than someone else's expectations. And that peace becomes the foundation upon which confidence, purpose, resilience, compassion, and genuine freedom continue to grow. Freedom is often imagined as something that comes from the outside. People believe it begins when circumstances improve, when opportunities appear, when money increases, or when others finally give them permission to live the life they desire. While those things can certainly make life easier, they cannot create the deepest kind of freedom. Real freedom begins much earlier, in the quiet moment when you decide that no one else has the authority to define your identity. It begins when you understand that your value is not determined by popularity, your purpose is not assigned by society, and your future is not limited by someone else's opinion of your potential. For many people, life becomes a constant search for approval. They work harder than necessary just to be noticed, speak more carefully than they truly feel just to avoid criticism, and make decisions based on what will earn acceptance rather than what brings peace. This search can last for years because approval is temporary. The people who praise you today may question you tomorrow. The standards that make you successful in one season may become outdated in another. If your identity depends on the changing opinions of the world, then your confidence will always be unstable. You will spend your life trying to satisfy expectations that never stop changing, leaving little room to discover what genuinely matters to you. Self-definition changes everything because it places the foundation of your life where it belongs, within you instead of around you. It does not mean ignoring wisdom, refusing advice, or believing that you have nothing left to learn. Instead, it means recognizing that while others can offer guidance, they cannot decide who you are. Your experiences, values, dreams, struggles, compassion, and convictions create a story that no one else is qualified to write. The responsibility of understanding that story belongs to you. When you define yourself, your choices become more intentional. Instead of following every trend, you ask whether it aligns with your principles. Instead of comparing your journey to someone else's timeline, you begin respecting the pace of your own growth. You stop chasing achievements simply because they impress people and start pursuing goals that carry personal meaning. This shift transforms success from something performed for the world into something experienced within your own heart. The satisfaction that comes from living according to your values is deeper than the excitement that comes from receiving applause because it cannot be taken away by changing opinions. Self-definition also gives you the courage to embrace every part of your story, including the chapters you once wished to hide. Many people believe they must erase their failures, mistakes, or painful experiences to become worthy. In reality, those experiences often shape the wisdom, empathy, resilience, and strength that define their character. When you stop allowing others to use your past as a measure of your future, you begin seeing your struggles as evidence of growth rather than proof of weakness. Your scars become reminders of survival instead of reasons for shame. There is remarkable peace in no longer needing everyone to understand you. You realize that misunderstanding is not failure, rejection is not the end of your story, and disagreement does not diminish your worth. You become less interested in proving yourself because you no longer question your right to exist as your authentic self. The energy once spent defending your identity is now invested in building your future, nurturing meaningful relationships, creating work that reflects your purpose, and living with quiet confidence. Freedom grows stronger each day you choose honesty over performance, conviction over approval, authenticity over imitation, and the unwavering belief that your identity is a truth you discover within yourself rather than a label the world has the power to assign or remove. One of the greatest obstacles to becoming your authentic self is the constant need for approval. Many people spend years making choices that are not guided by their own values, but by the hope of being accepted. They stay silent when they should speak, agree when they truly disagree, and follow paths that never belong to them because they fear standing alone. At first, this may seem like the safest way to live. It avoids conflict, attracts compliments, and creates the appearance of belonging. Yet beneath that appearance often exists a quiet dissatisfaction, because every decision made to satisfy others slowly distances you from the person you were created to be. Fear has a remarkable ability to disguise itself as wisdom. It tells you that now is not the right time to follow your dream. It whispers that people will laugh at your ideas, criticize your choices, or reject you if you reveal your true self. The longer you listen to that voice, the more convincing it becomes. Eventually, you stop questioning whether those fears are real. You simply accept them as facts. Instead of exploring your potential, you begin organizing your life around avoiding disappointment. Instead of asking what is possible, you ask what is safe. While safety may protect you from temporary discomfort, it can also prevent you from experiencing the growth that only courage can bring. The desire to fit in is deeply human. Every person wants to feel seen, valued, and connected. However, there is an important difference between belonging and pretending. Belonging allows you to be accepted as you truly are. Pretending requires you to hide parts of yourself in order to earn acceptance. Many people confuse these two experiences and spend years performing for relationships, workplaces, or communities that only appreciate the version of them that has been carefully edited. True connection cannot grow where authenticity is absent. If people only know the mask you wear, they can never truly know the person behind it. Letting go of approval does not mean becoming careless about others or refusing to listen to constructive advice. Wisdom often comes through people who challenge us with honesty and kindness. The difference lies in who holds the final authority over your identity. Advice can shape your decisions, but it should never replace your inner conviction. When your self-worth depends entirely on applause, every compliment becomes addictive and every criticism becomes devastating. You begin living on an emotional roller coaster controlled by opinions that change from one moment to the next. Freedom begins when you appreciate encouragement without becoming dependent on it. Every meaningful achievement in history has required someone to step beyond the comfort of acceptance. New ideas are often questioned before they are celebrated. Courage is rarely understood in its earliest stages because it usually looks unfamiliar to those who have chosen comfort instead. If you wait until everyone agrees with your path, you may never begin walking it. Growth demands the willingness to be misunderstood for a season while remaining faithful to the truth you carry within yourself. There is incredible strength in accepting that not everyone will understand your journey. Some people will leave when you stop living according to their expectations. Others may criticize the boundaries you establish or the direction you choose. Their response does not determine the value of your decision. What matters is whether your choices reflect honesty, integrity, and purpose. As you release the endless need to impress, you create space for confidence to grow naturally. Your actions become less about proving your worth and more about expressing it. The opinions of others no longer dictate your future because your identity is rooted in principles that remain steady even when circumstances change, allowing your heart to move with quiet courage, unwavering conviction, and a deep commitment to living a life that reflects your own truth rather than the expectations of the crowd. Many people believe that life truly begins when they achieve a certain level of success, earn enough money, gain recognition, or receive the approval they have been seeking for years. They convince themselves that happiness is waiting somewhere in the future, just beyond the next promotion, the next accomplishment, or the next milestone. Yet countless individuals reach those goals only to discover that something still feels incomplete. The missing piece was never another achievement. It was the absence of their authentic self. A life built around expectations may look successful from the outside, but if it is disconnected from who you truly are, it will always leave an emptiness that no amount of applause can fill. Discovering yourself is not a single event that happens overnight. It is an ongoing journey of listening to your inner voice, questioning the beliefs you inherited, and making choices that reflect your deepest values instead of your deepest fears. It requires honesty because there are moments when you must admit that you have been living for the approval of others more than for the peace within yourself. It requires courage because authenticity often asks you to walk away from familiar patterns, comfortable routines, and expectations that no longer serve your growth. It also requires patience because becoming your true self is not about rushing toward perfection, but about returning, step by step, to the person you were always meant to become. When you begin living authentically, ordinary moments take on new meaning. You no longer wake each morning wondering how to impress the world. Instead, you ask how to live with integrity, kindness, purpose, and honesty. Your goals become expressions of who you are rather than attempts to prove your worth. Your work becomes more meaningful because it reflects your passion instead of your desire for recognition. Your relationships become stronger because they are built on truth rather than performance. The energy once spent pretending is now invested in creating, learning, serving, and growing. Living as your authentic self does not remove every difficulty from life. Challenges still arise, disappointments still happen, and uncertainty remains part of the human experience. The difference is that you face those moments with a stronger foundation. You are no longer shaken by every opinion because your confidence comes from knowing who you are. Criticism may still sting, but it no longer defines your identity. Failure may slow your progress, but it no longer convinces you to abandon your purpose. You understand that setbacks are chapters in your story, not the title of your life. Authenticity also inspires others in ways that perfection never can. When people see someone living honestly, speaking with conviction, and embracing both strengths and weaknesses, they are reminded that they too have permission to stop pretending. Courage has a quiet influence. It spreads not through loud speeches alone, but through consistent actions that demonstrate what freedom looks like. Every person who chooses authenticity makes it easier for someone else to believe that such a life is possible. The greatest reward of becoming yourself is the peace that follows. It is the freedom of no longer carrying masks that were never yours to wear. It is the confidence of knowing that your value is not decided by popularity, comparison, or public opinion. It is the quiet joy of building a life that reflects your own principles instead of someone else's expectations. This is where real life begins, not at the moment the world finally understands you, but at the moment you fully understand yourself, embrace your unique identity without apology, walk forward with purpose instead of fear, and allow every decision, every relationship, every dream, and every step to become an honest reflection of the person you have finally chosen to be.